You're listening to Leisure World Direct. I'm your host, GRF Communications Manager Emma DiMaggio, and I'm joined by Executive Manager of Mutual Services, Dave Potter.
Hello, everybody.
Today we'll be talking about the GRF and mutual elections, and we're lucky because Dave here is the expert on elections.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but okay.
We're going to go through some FAQs, some important dates and deadlines for the 2026 election season. To start, Dave, why do the GRF and mutuals hold elections every year?
Largely for the same reason that most municipal offices hold elections from time to time. It's how you can allow for a natural turnover of leadership if somebody wants to move on or if the membership decides that it's time to move on. Just when you think about it, our local assembly people and state senators, they all have a term of office. Our Congress people and senators, the president, virtually every elected official has a defined term of office. Now, serving on the board for a common interest development is not exactly an elected office, but it's also not exactly an elected office. So you have a defined term as well for there.
What are the terms for GRF and mutual directors, and what's the structure of how they're elected and when?
They're 2-year terms. And most of them are, or 1-year terms, depending on the mutual. You always have to look at your bylaws to see what is the exact criteria for each organization or entity. And this place was built over a multiple year period. There can be some different theories applied depending on when the mutual was built. If you're doing 2-year terms, which is what, for example, GRF does, you typically want to then stagger those so that you're electing half of the group 1 year and half of the group the next year.
What is the benefit of staggering the elections?
The benefit of staggering is that it provides a little more inherent stability for the organization because you're never turning over the entirety of the body at a single time.
So you always have people who understand what's going on and have a little bit of experience under their belts.
That's the theory of the case, yes.
We'll get into some FAQs later on, but I'd like to start by emphasizing what these elected board members do, since theoretically that's what voters will be keeping in mind while they elect them. A GRF director or a mutual director are quite different, but can you tell me what sorts of responsibilities a GRF director has and what level of power?
I'm gonna flip that if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna start with the mutual director because the mutuals here are more akin to a typical common interest development that you might find anywhere in Southern California or the whole of California. So as a mutual director, you're responsible for overseeing the broad operations of what your common interest development are, right? Which are maintaining your property, the buildings themselves, maintaining the common interest land, and enforcing what rules and regulations that you have. Those are not in the entirety of the responsibilities, but those are the 3 big ones. And most of what you're going to do flow back to those 3 core responsibilities. So any maintenance obligation for your building, anything related to the rules or enforcing it, or any of the common land that you own, any of the landscaping, any of the trees, any of that stuff. That's a mutual director. For a GRF director, GRF has all those things as well. GRF doesn't own any living residences, but GRF owns a multitude of clubhouses and common area facilities here that need to be maintained. There are codes of conduct that are needed for members when they're on GRF property. GRF is in charge of overseeing that. A GRF director, because GRF directly employs around 200 people as of the taping of this, GRF is also an employer and has everything and all the responsibilities that come with that. So we have an HR department, we have an IT department. Anything that comes with being a business also flows to GRF. So the scale of responsibility is much greater than what you would experience as a mutual director. And mutual boards don't have any direct employees. They contract things out. Mutuals contract with GRF to provide management services and other services. Mm-hmm. So they don't have that level of responsibility in their decision-making process, whereas GRF does.
How can people go about deciding who to vote for, especially for both the GRF and the mutual directors? Both are going to be affecting their lives by how they govern. How do people learn more about the candidates that are running in their mutuals?
Well, I can tell you what I would do. I'll answer the question that way. You can always attend meetings so that you can see how folks that are in office right now currently are doing, what their performance is like. Folks have the opportunity, if they're a candidate for a board, to submit a candidacy statement that gets included with the ballot. Not everybody partakes of that, but everybody has that opportunity, so there you can review a candidate statement. And a lot of the clubs and mutuals and other organizations here sponsor some candidate forums or debates, whatever you want to call them. And that's a useful opportunity as well to go and just get a chance to listen to and hear people speak and get a sense for what they feel and what they want to bring to the table, what their mission is. I know a lot of candidates here do go door to door just to introduce themselves and get to know their neighbors and talk with them. And I would encourage anybody that if somebody is running for one of these offices here, try to give them 5 or 10 minutes of your time if they are coming around to meet you and talk with you. Just get a sense of what they want. Let them get a sense of what you are looking for and what your concerns are as well.
So once people have sort of gathered information, they maybe have a good sense of who they're voting for, they can cast their ballot and see how it pans out. Some people, I'm sure, will see their ballot and not quite be sure who to vote for, or maybe they want to leave the voting to people who might feel more involved. Why should they turn in their ballot anyways, and can we get a little bit into quorum?
Yes, so unlike a municipal election, where the people who show up determine who the winner is. Just saying, if you were to have a city council election and only 20 people showed up, whoever gets 11 votes is going to win that election. Mm-hmm. In a common interest development, we have a mechanism called quorum. That's a decent Scrabble word if you ever want to play it. But what it means is that there is a minimum participation threshold in order for the election to take place. If you attend board meetings, you will hear board members talk about, well, do we have a quorum to proceed with this? Or at a GRF committee meeting, do we have a quorum to proceed with this? That's a minimum number of members of the body present in order to function and do business. The governing documents will generally define what a minimum participation threshold for the membership of the mutual, because these are at the end of the day all mutual elections. How many of the members have to be participating in order for the election to take place? So that is the reason why you should participate and vote. And if, in your scenario, if you're somebody that you aren't necessarily comfortable voting for somebody, but you want to make sure that the folks who are comfortable get a chance to get their voices be heard, or if there's a scenario where there are 2 seats open on the mutual, and there are only 2 people running, but we're still doing the election, you still have to hit quorum to have the election. There's an ability to designate your ballot as a quorum-only ballot, which just means that it will count towards achieving quorum, but you're not actually voting for a candidate. You do have the ability to do that if that is something you want to do. And that can be important because if you don't hit quorum, you have to make another attempt at having the election, which can incur additional costs for your mutual.
So a mutual might have to pay more money if not enough people turn in their ballots.
Yes.
Okay. Good reason to turn in your ballot.
It's a good, especially if you're comfortable that other folks are going to make the decision.
Because you can't all just turn in a quorum only vote. Someone has to vote.
Someone has to vote, yes.
How do people get these ballots in the first place? When are they going to be mailed? Do they just show up to their houses?
Well, if the U.S. Postal Service does their job correctly, they will show up at their houses, yes. But under California law, a third party is hired to facilitate and administer the election. That's an inspector of elections company. So they will get a membership list from GRF, and they will mail the ballots 30 days prior to the election date. So you will be getting 2 ballots. You will get 1 ballot for your mutual election, and you will get a ballot for your GRF director if your GRF director is up for election this year. They will come in different colored envelopes to try to make them easily identifiable. But that's how you get them, is if the postman does their job correctly.
And which mutuals are having GRF directors elected this year?
For 2026, which is an even-numbered year, the even-numbered mutuals are having their GRF director election this year.
So if you live in an odd-numbered mutual, you'll only be receiving 1 ballot.
You will only be receiving one ballot, yes.
And you noted that the mutual and the GRF ballots will be different colors this year. Has that always been the case?
The envelopes will be different colors.
Yes.
That has not always been the case. That was actually some feedback that we got from the community in, I think it was 2024, that it is easy to get them confused. And that's a very fair bit of feedback. And it's one that staff would not necessarily think of, or the inspector of election would not necessarily think of, because they're not in the community receiving these things. So I was thankful to get that, and we were able to make this adjustment. And hopefully it will make things a little easier for our residents here to participate.
What is the deadline, what is the deadline for people to turn in their ballots? And second, what are the different ways that people can turn on ballots?
So the deadline for turning in your ballots is the time of the election. So you can mail them in if you so desire. There will be a drop box placed here at the administration building, which is at 13531 St. Andrews Drive. They can be placed in the drop box if you want. The final way is that on the day of the election, you can walk in and you can drop off your ballot up until the time that the inspector closes the polls.
This is in Clubhouse 4.
This is in Clubhouse 4. So, for example, the GRF election is going to be on, the ballot counting is going to be Tuesday, June 2nd at 10 a.m. So if you walk in, and I would do it a little before 10 a.m. just to be sure, you can hand in your ballot. But one of the first orders of business will be for the inspector to ask if there is anybody there who has a ballot that wants to turn it in at this point. And then once they close it, that's it. No more ballots will be accepted. If you come in at 10:45, I guarantee the inspector will have closed the polls and they will not be able to accept your ballot. Just like at a municipal election, if you walk in at 7:45 p.m., and the polling place closed at 7, they will tell you, I'm sorry, you can't cast your ballot at this point.
Yeah. Is there prepaid postage for people who want to mail their ballots?
Yeah.
Okay. And after the ballot counting meeting on June 2nd, when do those winners, when are they installed into their corresponding boards?
For GRF, and I'm speaking of the GRF only because we're talking about that June 2nd GRF date, the installation of the directors happens the following week, so June 9th. For any of the mutual directors, the installation happens in real time. We will literally count the ballots, and then we will ask the new directors to go to the dais, and we will conduct some immediate business of electing officers and confirming the meeting dates and doing all those things.
I want to note for people who want to keep track of all these dates, there is a calendar of mutual and GRF dates that runs in the government section of the newspaper throughout the entire election season.
Yes, and I think we're even going to be sprinkling some fun fact boxes and some articles throughout the paper periodically as well, just to really keep people on their toes, but hopefully really draw attention to the process and help assure that we get a maximum level of participation.
Yeah. Lastly, we didn't cover everything related to elections. People can go to that FAQ list, which will be run in the newspaper. They're welcome to send questions to the newspaper we can track down an answer. Where else should people reach out if they have questions related to the GRF or mutual elections?
So if you have mutual specific questions, you can certainly reach out to our senior portfolio specialist, Ripa Barua. Her email is ripab@lwsb.com. If you have a GRF-related election questions, you can reach out to our manager of client services, Andrea Machucci, at andream@lwsb.com, or our executive assistant, Emma Hurtado, at emah@lwsb.com. I'm certainly available to answer questions as well. That's davep@lwsb.com. And if you're just not sure who the question should go to, you can always use the general email of info@lwsb.com, and our client services team will read it and will direct it appropriately.
This has been Leisure World Direct.